I know that my house is destroyed, and I'm gonna work hard to rebuild my house.
They came with nothing, and they leave with nothing. But their spirits are unbroken, and they're back to start the process of rebuilding Kosovo. Ross Appleyard, Sky News, on the Kosovo-Albanian border.
What's been happening today? Are the numbers still as large as ever heading into Kosovo?
Yes, some are leaving, Jeremy, but we have to remember that it is a small number at the moment compared with those who are still here. 250,000 refugees in Macedonia, 25,000 of them at this refugee camp. Some are leaving, they're trickling down towards the road, whereas we saw earlier on today they are facing a very, very long wait in the queue up to the Blace crossing. It is just a few miles home. Pristina from this camp is only about 35, 40 miles. It's not very far, but it is taking them 5 hours to get through the crossing and to get home, and then who knows what they'll find. Those in villages and towns may find landmines awaiting them, and they may not find their homes there. Many of the homes, of course, have been destroyed. The people around me say they are going to wait a little longer, but not too much longer. The UNHCR, of course, is saying that it's not safe for these people to return just yet and is urging caution. But obviously they are impatient, Jeremy.
Emma, by coincidence, I think one of the coaches that left Stankovic earlier on today arrived here right beside us earlier a few hours ago with about 60 refugees with little bags of belongings, and they said they were overwhelmed to be back in Pristina, where they believe it's relatively safe, and they just couldn't wait to return, and they started using phones and starting to ring their relatives back in Stankovic and in other cities around. You get the feeling that they're going to pass the word to come up, don't you?
Absolutely. There is such a feeling of optimism here. You would have seen it there as they were arriving in Pristina. Many of them, as they were leaving along the road today, we spoke to them and they said, this is the happiest day of my life. I didn't think I'd live to see this day when I'm actually going back home. No matter what I find there, I know I'm going home and that's all I want. So obviously if people are ringing back and saying that it is safe, there are homes there to go to, other people are going back, these people want to follow. But having said that, there are a few people here who don't want to go back at all. They're still trying to get on the UN airlifts out. They want to go to other countries. A lot of them want to go to Germany. A lot of them want to go to Denmark. And they're hoping that those countries will still accept refugees, even though the
is committed in Kosovo grows, so the job of the war crimes investigators becomes tougher. The International War Crimes Tribunal at The Hague is empowered with trying indicted war criminals. Trials are conducted under normal rules of criminal prosecutions, which means the onus falls on prosecutors to prove guilt. To that end, investigators are trying to keep sites of massacres intact for forensic examination. Testimonies of Albanians who witnessed killings are taken as corroborative evidence.
As Amnesty International itself looks into these individual incidents, it's to take those general incidents and make it into a larger pattern of something that occurred, and then to be able to trace names and incidents and dates, trying to develop a database of different incidents to show what sort of units were involved, who were the commander of those units, and then establish a command line responsibility.
Yet the Bosnian experience indicates just how difficult bringing prosecutions is. In 1992, there was a massacre of Croats and Muslims at a masker camp in Bosnia. It took 5 years to convict one indicted war criminal, Dusan Tadic. He was given a 20-year sentence.
Dusan Tadic's case details are listed here on The Hague's website, along with those of 88 other indicted war criminals. The Hague says out of that there have only been 6 successful prosecutions. The best-known names, those of Radovan Karadzic, Ratko Mladic, and now Slobodan Milosevic and others, are all still at large.
One of the biggest problems for the Kosovo investigators is that they aren't allowed to arrest anyone inside Serbia without the consent of Milosevic's government.
When atrocities are committed in such a massive scale, not everybody can be tried and prosecuted or indicted even.
So you would expect most people who committed these crimes to get away with it?
Unfortunately, yes.
26,000 Serb troops have now left Kosovo for Greater Serbia, where international law finds it difficult to touch them. Many bereaved Albanians may have to accept that the killers of their loved ones may never face justice. Lawrence Lee, Sky News.
Well, just a half ago, just a few miles down the road from here, and there was about a 10-kilometre long convoy of people in cars, mostly farm trucks. What was noticeable, these people had all come from Irasovats, which is down near the border, where we heard continually during those weeks when refugees were coming over of Serb atrocities. These were all Serbs. They obviously had taken a decision to leave en masse, but they were poor people. These weren't rich. They were in farm tractors.
Subedin Becai knew his house would be in ruins. When he came back from the refugee camp, he found the remains of the breakfast he'd been eating with his family when the Serbs burst in. He'd hoped to find his son or his 6 brothers, not broken crockery. He's now pretty certain they died in this field on the 27th of April with at least 100 other men. Bodies still lie here, rotting. This is Mer, where one of the worst massacres of the war happened. Subedin showed how the Serbs forced his sons and his brother to kneel with dozens of other Kosovo Albanian men between the ages of 16 and 60. It was the last time he saw them. His friend, Zanun Jamali, also just back from Albania, was looking for 9 men from his family. Like Subedin, he was hoping that somehow some of them might have escaped. Old men like Subedin, the women and the children traveled on to Albania. There they testified in overwhelming, convincing detail about what Serb police had done. To men whose possessions litter the field, whose bodies are thought to be hidden under piles of manure. When the women and the old men, whose husbands and sons and brothers had been killed here, arrived in Albania, of course they were paralyzed with grief, but they also had a distant look, as if what happened in this field was too much for a single person fully to understand. Coming here, where the air smells of rotting flesh, where there's a severed leg in the grass, where bodies lie under the trees, you begin to understand that a bit. Valbona came to look for her relatives. She went away, bewildered by the depths of human depravity.
I can't believe that the human can do this. What have they done here?
What happened in this field has been investigated and confirmed by human rights researchers. The killers are still at large. Jeremy Bowen, BBC News, Mayor.
Disarm everybody in the Balkans. There are weapons buried in the backyards and under the floorboards of virtually every dwelling place in the Balkans. And that's been a pattern for a century or more. In fact, in this conflict, you may know that as it started out last year, there were people using 1940 vintage rifles in the conflict that had been buried and covered with greased cloth and so forth and kept for decades and brought back again. I have no doubt that pattern will repeat itself. Therefore, we're not saying that we're disarming. We are demilitarizing. That is to say, it's the KLA and any other armed organizations which have to become non-military organizations. We don't want people carrying long-barreled weapons on the street and in public. We don't want heavy weapons out there. We're going to require that these heavy weapons and other weapons be turned in. But disarmament, we've no illusions about that. That's simply not feasible to disarm this country of Yugoslavia.
Centro cittadino. I serbi rimasti sono indecisi tra la fuga e la necessità di restare e si appellano al contingente italiano chiedendo aiuto. I nostri militari rafforzano le posizioni. Ieri notte un mezzo blindato è saltato su una mina che l'UCK aveva destinato al passaggio degli ultimi mezzi della polizia serba. Nessun ferito, per fortuna. Nella cittadina devastata è giunto il patriarca ortodosso di Pristina e Podgorica ed è rimasto sconvolto da quanto ha visto.
Tragedia d'Europa di noi, vergogna di tutti noi.
I serbi fuggono in massa anche da Klina, ultima cittadina controllata dai militari italiani. Klina è ormai un deserto e il sogno della pulizia etnica di Milosevic è finito in pasto ai maiali, rimasti padroni della città.
Avevamo visto caserme e palazzi delle forze armate bruciate dai soldati serbi in partenza, ma qui a Pristina evidentemente non hanno fatto in tempo a cancellare i segni della violenza. La stazione di polizia, così come l'hanno trovata i soldati inglesi questa mattina. Accanto alle foto segnaletiche, gli strumenti per la tortura, mazze da baseball con i simboli etnici, batterie e fili per le scosse elettriche, cappucci. Tutto lì a testimoniare la furia, l'odio di cui è stato vittima parte del popolo kosovaro. Ma non hanno responsabilità, non c'entrano i civili serbi che ora a migliaia fuggono per paura della vendetta. La Chiesa ortodossa si appella al contingente di pace. Il patriarca Pavle si rivolge direttamente al generale Jackson. Dovete proteggere i serbi che restano come gli albanesi che tornano. Non lasciate che gente indifesa paghi il prezzo degli errori di potenti lontani. Ma noi siamo qui per tutti, dice questo soldato americano. La pace non può creare nuovi profughi. Invece Pristina è come un enorme incrocio di fuga e di speranza. Si dice siano partiti in 50.000 verso Belgrado in poche ore, mentre masse incredibili di albanesi tornano con ogni mezzo, a piedi, in treno e sui trattori. Nessuno ferma nessuno, ma chi parte è salutato dai rancori di chi torna e ritrova la casa distrutta, i beni e i ricordi di una vita persi nelle ceneri dell'intolleranza.
Nessun passo avanti sostanziale.
In the way that they are our church, we were victims, we have many enemies, we should to be victimized, and it's a false argument.
Relations between the Serbian and Greek Orthodox churches have a long history of ups and downs, but they had one common historical enemy, the Ottomans and their Muslim state religion. Born a son and a brother. He refused to leave his house and was beaten to death by Serbian militiamen. 2 murders in one family. Professor Berisha had been convinced that the non-violent resistance movement would eventually prevail over Serbian oppression. He told his daughter over and over again, Kosovo will be the new model for the Balkans.
I am afraid that this great number